brighter light. Inner circles here where voices thrive. Turn on your screens, let the magic unfold. Listening and healing as stories are told. Come one, come all, this is your time. No topics too tough, just heed the calls. From mental health woes to justice we seek. Together we rise for the strong and the meek. A safe space for all, let's lift every voice. Inner Circle podcast where hearts unite. Sharing our truths, bringing hope to the light. Community strong, we're never alone. Together as one, we've created a home. With laughter and love, we break down the walls. No topics too tough, just heed the calls. From mental health woes to justice we seek. Together we rise for the strong and the meek. A safe space for all, let's lift every voice. So join the conversation, let's set the tone. Inner Circle podcast where love is well known.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Inner Circle podcast. Today is Thursday, September 11th. Wow, it's 24 years ago. The tragic 9/11 incident happened. So it's been a 9/11 memorial service going on all over this country today. So our prayers are with all those that were affected by that incident. 24 years ago. Wow, that's a long time. But tonight, we have a special topic, America's talk, housing, jobs, and a freeze on mobility. You know, that is something that kind of hit home for many of us, the feeling of being stuck, right? There was a recent Wall Street Journal article that I came across that talks about how no one is currently buying a home, no one is switching jobs, and America mobility is stalling. Families are trapped in houses, they have outgrown because of mortgage rates, because mortgage rates have doubled. Workers are holding onto jobs they don't love, but they don't want to risk losing stability. And as a country, a lack of movement is reshaping, what America has always thought about, right? The American dream, right? So tonight this isn't about numbers, right? It's about real people like us, parents, if we are homeowner, immigrants that come to this country for opportunity. Everyone kind of a feeling trapped, frustrated, and like just like uncertain about the future. I don't know about you, right? But the year has been kind of a feeling that way. So when I read this article, I said, well, man, it will be so important for us to discuss this on the Inner Circle podcast because it actually seems like this year, right? Like America is really, really stuck. Folks are stuck in their jobs. There's no mobility. People are not getting raises. Everything seems to be so expensive. So we're just going to unpack, what I came across, in an article and discuss that right and we can. Today is only me. It's a solo episode tonight. So I'm going to be bringing this to you again. America stuck. We are stuck in our houses, in our jobs, and just the freeze on mobility. It was a Wall Street Journal article that I read about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I think it's necessary for us to discuss that, especially as immigrants, immigrants families, immigrant community. Some of us working 2, 3 jobs, but yet still we struggle to pay the bills, So this story kind of already really resonate with us. You're working those jobs, but it seems that you're just living paycheck to paycheck. So we'll dive into that article tonight and just kind of highlight some of the key points in that article. It's like, what does a movement hold? So you can join a conversation, obviously. If you have a comment or, comment, you can put in our chat or you can call our number to contribute to this 952-594-5154. But before we get into this topic, right, the tragic incident yesterday has been trending. It's been making national waves, on the internet it's trending. Everybody's talking about it. and things like that. So the tragic assassination, the senseless assassination of Charlie Kirk. He's a consecutive commentator, hugely popular guy, young guy, 31 years old, two kids, young kids with a wife, and someone just went on a college campus. When the government is still at large, right? Went on a college campus and assassinated him. Who knows why? you know. But while the Charlie Kirk thing is kind of having a lot of plays, the thing that is not getting play, right, is like there was also like a shooting in Colorado yesterday. It was actually a mass shooting. A gunman went to a high school, killed two people, shot two students, and he was a student himself. He shot two students and then turned a gun on himself and killed himself. The reason why I brought that up is like, guys, I've always said, right, is like many times on this platform, there's too many guns in this country, man. 393 legal civilian guns, almost 400 million legal civilian guns in this country. It's a huge epidemic. I don't think they should be about any political issue, Republican or Democrat or whoever, independent. There's just too many guns in this country. No one feels safe, you know. No one feels safe. I don't know. I don't know how this issue can be solved, but to have that many guns, and sometimes what I wondered about as an immigrant who came to this country, what I wondered about is like you have 18,000 law enforcement agency in this country. 18,000 from your local police department to everything. Why it is like we feel in this country that we need guns for what? To put protection. Yes, two folks are getting killed. Like 2 or 3 weeks ago, right here in Minneapolis, at the church, students are having mass. Someone went and killed them. It's just so sad. Like it's keep happening, keep happening. There's just too many guns in this country. No one feels safe. From the Charter Kirk incident yesterday to the Annunciation stuff, a couple of weeks ago, to the incident in Colorado, it is just going to keep happening over and over and over. But I think something needs to be done about it, man. Having almost 400 million guns, legal civilian owned guns, that's too many guns. None of us is safe. I don't think, and what I struggle with, I don't think like the topic that we're going to talk about tonight, I don't think you need gun to pay your mortgage. The issue of gun ownership in this country, sometimes the debate is so senseless, right? I mean, some of us who came from war-torn countries, gun is no joke. The lead mistake with gun is either a dead person or like an injured person, as we have seen so many times, countless of time in this country. And coming from a war-torn country, experiencing a civil war, that's something that's real. It's real. Is that like gun should not be a child's play. It shouldn't be easily accessible, wherein I can just walk to my local Walmart and buy a gun. That it just doesn't make sense. Just does not make sense. There's too many guns in this country. There has to be a way. Politicians, whether Democrat, Republican, Independent, have to find a way to see how best they can work on the issue because so many lives are being lost to this gun violence thing. The issue the yesterday in Utah, the Colorado incident, the Annunciation incident right here in Minneapolis, it's just too much. It's just too much. So I hope our prayers are with Charlie Kirk and his family. Obviously he left a wife and two kids. Imagine like he left a 1 year old. I don't know the person who decided to go and take his life didn't think that God there's a man with family and and kids, and they went and murder him. You know, it's not my place to pass judgment onto anyone, but it's just I think the real issue here is just the epidemic of guns, man. There's too many guns in this country that's easily accessible. Anybody, if you don't have a criminal record, you can walk to your local Walmart wherever and buy a gun. You can go to a gun range and practice how to shoot. That is just I just can't wrap my mind around that, right? That such a thing. People will do such a thing over and over. These lunatics, someone without any criminal record, but maybe he's suffering mentally, will walk into a gun store, buy a gun, and then maybe decide here that he want to create some dumb stuff, and that's what keeps happening over and over and over. I hope and pray politicians can find a way, to come together and solve this problem because who knows, man? Like that gunman yesterday in Utah, If he wanted to kill people, maybe he was only like, as you know, I told a couple of friends, I said probably he was only aiming for Charlie. Why if he wanted to just do a mass murder? All of those 3,000 folks in that vicinity, he could have gone on a rampage. But thank God, you know what I mean? Stuff like a lot of lives was saved. But there's just too many guns in this country, folks. Almost 400 million civilian guns. It's just too many. It is just too many. I don't know how to quantify that. Now that just legal civilian guns, almost 400 million, right? If you add illegal guns to that, imagine, imagine. I think it's, I mean, it's like you probably have up to 400 or 500 or 600 million guns when you add all of the illegal guns to that. So there's just too many guns in this country, man. It's like we live in a war zone. No one is safe. Our kids go to school, they are not safe. You go in a public gathering, you are not safe because guns are easily accessible in this country. And that's just frightening, you know. It's just too much. We need to find a way as a society to say, gosh, it is not normal. It is not normal. I mean, the debate on both sides, you know, folks, everyone now going into their own tribal space, trying to argue this, argue that. Shouldn't be about the whole argument. Sometimes so it's just so exhausting, you know, and stuff like that. But I think we should find a way to solve this issue as a country. There needs to be a way because, man, as I said, owning a gun or not owning a gun cannot pay your mortgage, cannot pay your cell phone bill, cannot you know, pay your car note. You know, everyone, I think every one of us, like the issue we're about to talk about tonight, every one of us just want to live a normal life, you know, work if we have a job, run your business if you own a business. That's all we want to do. But to have a situation where in like, you know, folks can have easy access to guns and just keep committing senseless murder over and over and over and over every day in this country, you know, or every week someone is either getting shot, you know. I mean, it's just too much, folks. It's just too much. So that's all I gotta say about that. But again, we pray for all of the victims of gun violence. You know, keep praying for the families of the Annunciation shooting, and praying for Charlie Kirk and the Charlie Kirk family, his wife and his two young kids. Praying for the folks in Colorado, and praying for all those families that are affected by gun violence. It's just too much. We just gotta keep praying for them, and hopefully, you know, the political elites can help us find a solution to this whole thing because it's just too much, folks. Just too much. With that, again, our topic for tonight is America stuck, housing jobs, and the freeze on mobility. As I said, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal that talk about how the moment we live in right now, like America feels so stuck. You know, like nobody buying homes, right? That's one of the main points. Some of the key points in the article is like nobody buying homes right now because mortgage rates are so high, you know, around 6, 7%. You know, nobody's switching jobs, right? There are folks with the issue of housing, right? Folks who want to buy homes, but because the mortgage rate, first time home buyers want to buy a home, but because the mortgage rate is so high, you know, and those who even want to buy, they cannot find a home to buy. So, you know, so it's like if you currently live in an apartment, you want to buy a home, it's like because mortgage rates are so high, and even if you want to buy, there's no available homes. You know, the housing market is still tight. You know, I mean, imagine that, right? It's still very. I mean, supplies are still kind of a tight. You know, so you can't even find a home maybe in your price range to buy. So it's like at the end of the day, no one's buying homes. You know, those that are renting, first time home buyers who want to buy a home cannot because, like I said, mortgage rates are too high, or houses, there are no homes available in the price range that you might be comfortable to buy. So you know, he's talking that regard. And then when it comes to jobs, right? For folks, some of us that are working, you know, it's like folks are not switching jobs. You know, one of the key point in the article is like all over this country, you know, folks are not switching jobs. Like when the pandemic first happens, you know, you had that mass, you had something they call the mass resignation, where folks are switching jobs left and right. But since the pandemic ended, no one is switching jobs. You know, it's like you're afraid when you maybe like leave your current job to go to another one, you might not. You might not find it, right? It's getting harder to find a job, maybe that is paying comparable to your current jobs, right? So no one is chasing jobs. Okay, that's one of the key point there. So it's like folks that are in jobs, like maybe they don't love, right? But in America, you got to pay the bills, So even if you might not love your job, but you're stuck in there because you got to pay those bills, You don't want to take the risk of say, oh gosh, I want to go look for another job. So it's like, folks feel stuck in that regard. And then the article also talk about America's mobility. First, even during the pandemic or before the pandemic, right? If you maybe I live here in Minneapolis or Minnesota, and maybe I see a job on the East Coast in New York that pays well, hey, I am going to maybe like apply for that job. If I get it, take my family, move my family from maybe Minnesota to New York or to Philadelphia, Georgia, wherever, you know. Now is like that mobility, is like has been frozen in time. No one is doing that anymore, So everyone's kind of a few stuck, and things like that. And then the effect of all of this, right, is like it's just taking like a psychological toll and force. And you can actually feel that because it seems like we live in a moment where there's so much anger, folks are angry, prices are so high. It's like everyone is struggling just to like make ends meet, you know. And so it's creating mental tension, right? It's creating stress. Folks are feeling, overwhelmed, with bills and things like that. But where do we go from here, folks? Especially like for us immigrants, right? Most of us who come here, for opportunity, and that's the reason why we came to this country, right? For opportunity, you know, to look for better opportunity and things like that. But you come, oh yeah, and stuff like that. Maybe you get a job and you just there's no upper mobility. They promise all of us this American dream, but the American dream is getting harder and harder to achieve. It is getting harder and harder to achieve. So those are some of the key points in this article. Where in like, and it is, when I look at my own, personal life, me and my family, the article kind of resonated, right? Because I feel like, especially this year feels so different. You talk to folks, time seems to be so high. Even some of your, if you have a side hustle, your side hustle, it's not like booming the way we were doing like couple of years back. Job, you get paid, but your paycheck doesn't cover all of your bills. You know, and then for those of us, those that own homes, it comes with that extra burden. Even if like I read that there was a situation I came across. There was a guy in Georgia who bought his home during the pandemic at a very low interest rate. He realized home ownership is not for him. He's trying to sell, but he cannot find a buyer. So he's stuck, right? He feels like the expenses of owning, the expenses that come with owning a home is just too much. You know, it's like your electricity bill or anything breaks on the house. It's all you. It's all you. No one's going to come and help you. It's all you, right? So the expenses of owning that home, is just too much. So the guy is trying to sell, but he cannot. Okay. So he's very much stuck. He's frustrated because no one is the price point that he want to say is home at, right? Obviously, right? He bought that home a couple of years ago during the pandemic. Now he want to sell it to make some profit and maybe like become a rental again, but he cannot because no one is buying the number one interest rate that's so high. I mean, if you buy a $400,000 home with a 6.5 or 7% interest rate, man, I don't know how you would be able to afford such a mortgage, and things like that. So it's like a lot of folks are facing those dilemmas. Okay, lots of folks are facing those dilemmas, and then that's the kind of moment it seems that we are living in right now in this country. Everyone feels stuck, right? Prices are so high, as I said. You know, you want to probably look for a better job, or maybe you wishing your company will give you a raise. It's not happening, right? You know what I mean? It's not happening, right? I can imagine during the pandemic when you're looking for jobs, you used to find jobs that maybe pay more, offer better benefits. Now, like when you look at some of these jobs and say, okay, what happened? It's like they're not even paying that much anymore. Okay. So it's just like we live in times right now, and that's why you can feel the tension or the anger in this country right now. Okay. It's too much anger, it's too much tension. Folks are so frustrated. It's like folks feel overwhelmed because if you go to to the grocery store, you try to buy a few things. You think, and I was telling a friend just today, just last week, I went to Target just to grab a few stuff for me and my kids. It's like few stuff in my shopping cart, man. It was like almost $300. So what is in the shopping cart that's costing me $300? Imagine a family, folks, if you have a family of five, a family of six, having young kids, times are so high and time seems to be so high. you know, it is so high. And that's why when I read this article, the Wall Street Journal article, where when it's talk about America stock, it really, really resonated. And I felt the need that, we should discuss it on the Inner Cycle podcast, right? Because it is something, especially for us immigrants, immigrant families. It is real, man. This is real stuff. There are a lot of folks going through this every day. Every day, there are a lot of folks encountering this situation. Okay. A lot of folks now are community working two jobs, three jobs, making ends meet, cannot afford to put food on their table. You have to make your choice between, maybe buying groceries or maybe paying your cell phone bill. There was another situation, a lady in Washington, D.C., I was listening to an episode where in like since she lost her government jobs, her employment has kind of a run out. And so she goes to the food shelf, the food pantry every week just to try to get food. Imagine, man, this is America we are talking about. But there are so many families going through these kind of hardships, so many families going through these issues. So these are real things. And it's causing, real, it's really, really affecting people. It's causing real hardship. Okay. Real hardship, folks. So tonight, that's what we are talking about on the Inner Cycle podcast. I said there's a solo segment tonight. America stuck, housing, jobs, and the freeze on mobility. No one is moving anywhere anymore. Back in the days, a few years ago, there were a lot of folks moving to the Sun Belt, Arizona, Georgia, Texas, those places. Now no one seems to be moving because even those places where the like folks used to say, oh, like Texas is so cheap. Those that live in Texas will tell you that place is not cheap anymore, right? Everywhere in this country is getting so expensive. It is getting so expensive, you know, so expensive to live and things like that. And so that's the issue this article talk about. And so real, it resonated with me as I said, man, we need to discuss this on the Inner Cycle podcast because it is real, man. It is real life issues, right? A lot of families, a lot of folks are going through this. Lots of folks are going through this. So, folks, I said America stuck, housing jobs, and a freeze on mobility. So again, as I said, right, if you want to contribute to the conversation, how's your personal economy? Because that's how I look at this, right? How is your personal economy? How's your family economy doing? You can contribute by putting a comment in the chat. How are you feeling this? How are you feeling in these moments? What's going on in your life? Are you feeling stuck? There's so many people that the article talk about. Are you one of those feeling stuck? Are you, or maybe like for you everything is good, or are you feeling stuck, right? Maybe you're a renter trying to buy a home. How's that going for you? Okay. Are you trying to wait it out? Are you hoping that the Federal Reserve is going to lower interest rate? But how long can you wait, right? Because time is not waiting for us. Every day that passes by in this country, is like it adds to our age. Every day that passes by adds to your age. So time is not waiting for you. How long can you wait before maybe you buy your first home, or maybe you upgrade to a better home? If your family is growing, you want to upgrade. So how is your personal economy? How are you feeling in these moments, in these times? So you can, help me out here tonight by putting a comment in the chat or calling our number 952-594-5154. There is an Inner Cycle podcast where we amplify, we empower and elevate immigrant voices. And I know that is something that really, really resident of our immigrant families, because most of us may are struggling. We are just living paycheck to paycheck, even though we came into in this country, seeking the American dream, the promise of the American dream. That's what most of us came here for. But the American dream, man, is seems to be elusive for many of us. Many families cannot afford to upgrade, their houses because of the high interest rate. Interest rate just a couple of years ago was around 2-3%. Now, when inflation was getting higher, the Federal Reserve decided to raise interest rate. Right? They have raised it to the point where in like mortgage rates around is for the last couple of years it has been between 6 and 7%. And that's when to get such so to even get 6 or 7% interest, you have to have a very very good credit. You know, so if you like some of us who, if you have folks out there who credit score is not, in like the high 700s or the 800s, you might not even get such a rate. So it's like folks are feeding stock. You got so many renters, maybe who want to upgrade, who want to like buy, first time home buyers who want to buy a home, but they cannot. They cannot because first of all, even the prices of homes are so high. You got homes like these brand new homes they are building, like townhomes going for like 400K, $400,000. You have, houses going for 700, $800,000. The average price is like in Minneapolis, I think the average price of a home is like, around 350 or $400,000. So things are so expensive. So it's like imagine a first time home buyer trying to buy a first home. You would think like it would be around 250, maybe 200, 150, but you're looking at 350 or 400. That is just too high, folks. And so because of that, those that are renting in those apartments and the apartment rents are not cheap either, right? Like if you live in an apartment, every year the apartment complex are raising their rent. So you are facing higher bills when it comes to that, higher rental pricing when it comes to that. And everywhere in this country it seems to be a theme. Everywhere. They used to say the Sun Belt in the South was cheaper. But those that live in Georgia, in Texas, in Florida, will tell you that it's not. Everywhere in this country, things are getting harder. Times are getting harder. Things are getting harder. You know, owning a home is not cheap. Being a renter as well is not cheap. The rent prices are so high. Because everything, the price of everything is just keep going up and up and up, and no one know where this is going to lead. Right? When is it going to end? What is the end game of all of this? What is the end game of all of this? Okay, and so that's what this article talk about. How like American feel so stuck, right? Imagine that then another thing I read, right? Like married couples decided that their marriage is no longer working, the divorce, but they are forced because they own a home. They are forced to live together because they are forced to live together, or they decide to live together, to co-parent, because they feel like selling the home and moving out, life will become so expensive. Just imagine such a situation, right? You and somebody decided you have your guys are couples decided, hey, this relationship is not working, the marriage is not working, and you guys decide to go your separate ways. But because you guys own a home, it's like, man, um, it's not worth it trying to sell this home right now because when we sell it, where are we going to live, right? So you just decided, I mean, and you guys decide what to live there, to to wait it out, basically wait it out until maybe like either interest rate come down, things become cheaper, but who knows when's that going to be? So those are the things this article talk about, right? It's like everywhere in this country, Americans feel so stuck, right? And there's not that mobility anymore. Where in the folks are moving to the Sun Belt, to Georgia, right? A couple of years ago, everyone was moving to Georgia, I mean Atlanta, Georgia, or Georgia as a whole. Folks are moving to Florida. Folks are moving to Texas. That mobility is kind of has been frozen in time, right? No one is doing it anymore. It's like a couple of years ago, a lot of folks from the East Coast, right, especially in our community, were moving from, like the Philadelphia area, moving to, North Dakota, to Fargo, or maybe to Iowa, or even here to Minnesota. Those things are becoming harder and harder to do because, especially for homeowners, right? If you are in a home and you want to sell your house right now, yeah, the thing you'll be thinking about, if I sell my house, if I have a low interest rate, maybe you have 3% or 4% or 4.5%, and you sell your home right now, okay, and you're trying to buy a new home, you're probably looking at 6.5 or 7% interest rate. So you just decide, you know what, I'm not going to make that choice. I'm just going to stay in this home, and things like that. And then that is contributing to the lack of mobility in this country right now. So folks are stuck, everywhere in America right now. You know, everyone seems to be stuck, and especially this year. As I said, this year just feels so different. Things are a little bit hard. I know yet like yesterday, right? We talked about some of the economic benefit of the new administration, things like that. But even at that, right, sometimes the government will be telling you about all of their policies, things that are things that are meant to benefit ordinary citizens like you and I. But each of us, I always say that each of us have our own personal economy. So when you assess your own personal economy, sometimes doesn't jive with what maybe the government or the government is telling you, or the data that's out there. Oh, the unemployment rate is so low. But sometimes you wonder, but okay, if the unemployment rate is so low, I cannot even find a job, or I want to switch from my current job. I can't do that, right? Because there are not many jobs available based on my own personal assessment, not what the government is telling me, but based on my own personal assessment. I cannot find a job. I cannot find a job that pays me better than what I'm making right now. And so, right, it's one thing the article talk about, right? So it's like you feel stuck because you cannot switch a job, even though the government is telling that the unemployment rate is so low right now. So there are opportunities out there. The reality is when you assess your own situation, it is hard, right? Because you don't want to like let's assume like you're making like 25,000 in one job, $25 per hour in one job. You want to probably look for a job that probably pays you maybe $30, right? To be able to make that move, you know. And those are getting harder and harder and harder to find. And on top of all of this, right, the policies of the current administration are even making it harder. Whether we talk about the immigration crackdown, on our Tuesday segment here, we'll talk about the immigration crackdown that is going on all over this country. That is making it even harder for folks, right? It's like it is making things even harder. And so that's it, man, folks. Tonight it's a solo segment. All of my panelists, Miss B, got stuck in traffic. My man Peterson from the Windy City of Chicago couldn't make it tonight, but it is a sort of segment. So, and I'm discussing like America stock, a Wall Street Journal article that I came across that I read. I felt like it was necessary, to share with our audience. How I think it resonated with our audience out there. How like the lack of buying a home, lack of it's like it's so hard to switch jobs, and just that overall freeze on mobility. It's making life harder, right? Americans feel stuck. And that's what that's what the article talk about, America stock and things like that. So that's what I'm talking about tonight. And it all boils down to, as I said, right, when I look at this, I look at it in the context of my personal economy. Because I actually feel this, but I feel like, when I look at my side hustles, I look at my job and feel like, man, maybe just a couple of years ago things were booming, right? But now it's like everyone in my circle, as a matter of fact, seems to be complaining that things are not just that normal, right? And that when it comes to normal, I'm talking about the economy, right? It's like things are so high. Like things feels like stuck. I kind of personally, like, even when I look at my personal situation, I just feel a little bit like I'm stuck. I said, man, I want to make X, Y, and Z move, right? But I cannot because I'm thinking about, okay, I got my family, right? I need to take care of my family. I need to buy this stuff. I need to do this. So it's like you have so many families in around this country trying to make the same choice, those difficult decisions. So that's what the article talk about. How it's like everywhere in this country, Americans feel stuck. Folks that bought their houses during the pandemic or refinanced their houses during the pandemic and were fortunate to get a very low interest rate. Now they probably want to upgrade to a better home, but they cannot. Or they want to sell. They cannot because interest rates are so high, 6, 7%. And so they are stuck in a home that probably they don't want to be in it anymore, but they are stuck. You have situation where folks want to switch jobs, right? But because they're afraid that, God, if I leave this current job, it is my job is stable right now. I'm enjoying stability, there's benefits and stuff like that. Even though I don't love it, but I cannot switch, because I might not get another job, that pays me the salary or or the hourly rate the job is paying me. So many folks are, in this country are feeling that way, are feeling the stress, and it's creating, mental tension, it's creating stress for so many families and things like that. It's like folks just feel like everyone's feel handcuffed. You know what I mean? It's like you stay in your jobs even though you don't love it, but so you just feel handcuffed, right? You feel God, there's no way I can make a move, right? It's just so hard to make a move and things like that. So that's what we are discussing tonight. How is your personal economy? How's your economy feeling? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling, are you one of those, everything life is good, things are going well? Do you agree with this Wall Street Journal article? Are you stuck? Or do you know of folks that are stuck? You know, because I think when I read this Wall Street Journal article, I was even trying to bring the authors on here and how because they did a really, really extensive research, right? They did an extensive research, that all over this country, the South, the North, the Midwest, the Upper Midwest, the East Coast, everywhere in America, folks just feel stuck. Time seems to be so high, prices are so high. You know, the American dream seems to be on pause. And what the article points to, right? The whole bigger issue, like what they have taught us in this country is that the American dream, the American dream, the American dream, which when you talk about the American dreams, it's all about the issue of mobility, physical mobility, like getting from a going from being a renter to owning your home, maybe to upgrading to a better home. Uh, you know, if you are if you are employee, thinking about owning your own business, you quit your job and establish your own business. Those things, a lot of folks are not taking such those risks anymore, right? It's becoming harder and harder for folks to go that route. So it's like the whole idea of the American dream seems to be on pause right now. That's some of the things, that was the main message, in this article, where the whole idea of the American dream seems to be on pause, or it's not even real for many people. It's just so elusive, right? It's just so elusive for so many folks, you know and especially for we immigrant families. Some of us juggle so many situations, right? You have family back home that maybe you need to send remittance to. You have your family here. It's just maybe you're working in a low wage job, working two, three jobs, living paycheck to paycheck, and yet still you cannot even pay your bills. You cannot even pay your bills. So it is so so hard. It's so so difficult. And if you're observing me, as I said, sometimes when you go to the grocery store, you just pick few items, right? You know, it's like they charge you maybe like back in the day, you might follow your card, it might be like $100 or 50. Now, when you just few items from the grocery store, you're looking at 250, 300, 400. Say, man, what is this? So grocery bill all over this country, folks, family grocery bill have gone up. You know, they have gone up. I know like the CPI, the inflation rate just came up, right? It talks about how grocery prices or food prices, you know, continue to go up, gasoline prices continue to go up, so it's like these are real issue, folks. When it comes to our personal economy right now, it's like everyone seems to be stuck. We all feel stuck. So I think that this article really, really resonate. Is that it's something is real. I know, like the politician might tell us that that's not the case, but man, the Wall Street Journal is a very, very. I mean, when it comes to the world of finance and business, with the Wall Street Journal is kind of the gold standard of reporting. So I think that the authors really, really put some work into this article. And I said, when I read it, I said, oh wow, there is something. As I said, personally, I do feel it. And I know so many folks in my cycle feel it, and so many folks around this country feel it. And that's why sometimes like the anger, the frustration that you see in this country, sometimes I think these are some of the things where you feel like, okay, they are telling you, oh yeah, things are good, things are normal, but it just doesn't seem that way, right? Folks, so many folks seems to be stuck, in these moments. It's hard. Times are hard, especially if you have a young family, if you have kids, you know. For kids, right? If you have kids, they don't really care whether you have it or not, right? They just want to say, "Oh God, Dad, can you buy me food?" Or Mom, can you get me this? Right? It's like you don't care. You have families, mothers, single mothers out there struggling to working two, three jobs, folks working overtime just to be able to put food on their table. Okay, so it's like this thing is really, really real. You know what I mean? Stuff the American dream seems to be on pause, or it's elusive for so many families. Very, very much elusive for so many families. So that's what we are discussing tonight, folks. America stuck, when it comes to housing, comes to jobs, and the overall freeze on mobility. What does it mean for economic and social consequences, right? Uh, what does all of this mean again for the economic and social consequences? I just feel like when folks are buying right now, like even with the immigration crackdown, that we'll talk about on Tuesday, and then builders are not building enough homes because it costs so much. When it comes to, when it comes to the housing industry, mainly relied on immigrant labor, and now with the whole immigration crackdown, houses are just going to, I think, house prices will keep going up because if builders are not building new homes, right, for people to buy those homes. Maybe like if you want to upgrade, if you live in an older home that was built in the 1970s or 1980s, and now like there's a new home that come on the market, you want to buy, and so expensive. Just say, you know what, I'd rather stay in my 1970 home than try to go buy a new home because what, it's so expensive. So when folks are not buying home, right, it leads to what, slower economic growth. I mean, even like with the job numbers that came out a couple of a week ago or so, talk about slower job growth. Who knows, right? A lot of folks were not afraid that it might come a time, company will soon start laying off people. So everyone kind of there's this kind of anxiety, like you're afraid that, hey, especially for those in the corporate world, right? Afraid, oh gosh, if things keep going the way they are going, if the economy slow down, weak on constructions, fewer jobs and things like that, and companies must start and then companies are making the profit that they are expecting, right? Sooner or later, you're going to see like layoffs. What's that going to do? What does that mean for all of us, right? So it's like it seems like we live in like uncertain times. Things seems to be so uncertain. It's like we are all stuck, folks. And that's what this article talk about, right? America stuck. And as I said, personally, from my own life experience, I do feel that, and a lot of folks in my circle feel that. And we talk to folks, if you scan the internet, listen to news, kind of a same that way for so many families. So many people are struggling to make ends meet. People are working two, three jobs, and things like that. Folks want to get better promotion, folks want to get better wages. It's not possible, it's just that is becoming harder and harder to come by and things like that, right? Company are not in, prices are so high compared to wages, and that's making things life harder for folks, life harder for families. So I think this article is kind of nailed it right on the head. You know what I mean? So we live in times that folks, it's like everyone seems to be struggling. you know, you 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 think twice before like making any kind of a major financial decision, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, day after tomorrow, or next year. Because I said times are so uncertain. No one knows what's going to happen. And then when you add all of this together, America is such a way like, man, when you feed in financial stress, it leads to mental tension, right? Mental health, which is a real issue in this country. I know they talk about it every day when something comes up, it's oh, mental health, mental health. And I've said it many times. I think, because of the way the American system is set up, I think we all have mental health problem in this country because if you are thinking about paying your bills, thinking, on your job, the issue of so many other factors. It's just like it leads to a mental stress. Stress. So many folks are feeling stress and things like that. And so when you add the whole job situation, it even create more and more stress and things like that. So that's what we are talking about tonight, folks, on the Inner Circle podcast. We bring this topic just to create awareness, right? Because these are things normally we don't talk about or discuss in our community. These things you see it sometimes just in passing, but I know so many families. I think so many folks are experiencing this, right? Those in our community, right, especially in our immigrant community that want to buy a home. If you want to buy a home right now, it's so expensive, right? Interest rates are so high. I mean, you to even get a 7% interest rate, you have to probably get a 750 or 800 credit score. And if you get that, can you afford it? If you're paying $3,000, $4,000 for a mortgage, what's going to be left over for you to buy food, clothes? And if you have kids, it even makes it more and more difficult, more and more difficult. And so this thing really, really resonate with our community. I think so many of our folks are feeling stuck. Even those that are working two, three jobs are finding it harder just to even meet their mortgage payment or their rent. Folks are making hard financial decisions. So it's like I totally, you know what I mean, stuff like that, agree with the article that yes, America is really, really stuck. And when it comes to our immigrant community, I think this really, really resonate with us right now because not only are we stuck, we are also going through situation where in like we are being vilified, right? It's like, oh yeah, immigrants, there's a whole immigration crackdown going on. There's fear in various immigrant communities, especially the Latino immigrant community. So it just add a whole another extra layer to all of this, and things like that. So I think we live in times right now. I don't think the Wall Street Journal just came out with this article out of a sudden. I think they already did their research. The journalists traveled this country. They went to the south, they went to the east, came to the Midwest, upper Midwest, went to the west, and everyone, all of those families they interviewed for this article, I think it's just a reality we live in right now. Folks are not switching jobs. It's getting harder and harder to own a home. Home ownership is getting out of reach for so many folks. And even when I own a home, man, I think the whole thing about home ownership sometimes is can just bring a whole different angle to things, right? Is that yes, you want to own a home, but be careful what you wish for. It's so expensive to own a home. And so even those that own a home already are struggling. There's a real struggle there. Sometimes and then it's like that guy that I mentioned earlier in Georgia, right? He bought his home during the pandemic, right? At a very low interest rate. Now he's trying to sell. He cannot. He's at a point where he feels home ownership, the whole idea of home ownership that was sold to him, he feels like, it's not for him, right? He want to go back to being a renter, but he's finding it difficult to sell his home in Atlanta, finding it very, very much difficult to do that. And there's so many stories like that in this country, around this country. And so that's why I think this article is really, really timely. America's stuck. Folks, a lot of folks feel stuck. You want to switch your jobs, becoming difficult. Times prices are so high. You go to the grocery store, it's difficult. You know, um, to put food on the table. If you have a family, you wondering. Some of us that have kids that like to eat out all the time. Now, when you buy McDonald's, it's like, either $15 or $20. Back in it, there's no five at McDonald's anymore, right? It's like, all of these fast food joints, prices are so high. Prices, folks, so high. Food prices are so high. Gasoline prices are so high. Everything, everything. You're trying to buy a car prices are so high. The interest rate on cars, mortgage interest rate. So it's like all of these are creating so many stress on families. And that's what's like, I think this article is really, really timely. America's stuck, folks. But what can we do about it? How can we? What is the end game? What is the end goal to all of this? Right? Is that what do we need to do for us to get out of this situation? What what are we to do as citizens to get out of this situation, man? Because it's when a house when I house price is going to come down, when is interest rate going to come down? If you want to buy a home, when is that going to come down? When would it become easier to switch jobs. When companies start at least raising, wages, because right now, inflation seems to be outpacing wages. When can you expect to make a decent living wage? Like even today, I was listening to some Starbucks workers that I currently, those Starbucks workers that sell coffee and, in those various Starbucks stores. Some of them that are part of the union already are complaining that they are doing all this hard work, but their wages are not keeping up with, you know, their daily life expense. Even right here in Minnesota, right, the University of Minnesota school system already have, I think the janitors and food preparers are striking for better wages and stuff. So it's like life is getting harder, but we all kind of feel stuck in the same money we were making maybe from a year ago, from 2 years ago. So things are not improving, right? Things are not improving in terms of wages, in terms of your income, in terms of our income. So everywhere, I think everyone except maybe if you are like the Elon Musk or the Bill Gates or the Larry Ellison of the world. Well, I think everyone personal economy right now, especially when it comes to these kind of things, right? It is the middle class, the so-called middle class folks that are rare in a kind of a bubble, right? They are making just enough not to qualify for any kind of assistance, but they're not making enough to really live the life they want to live, right? So folks that are in that so-called middle class, right, is like you are stuck, you're kind of on your own, right? Because no one's going to come for help because you're making too much money to qualify for any kind of assistance, and then you are not really making anything because of the reality of life, right? The reality of your expense, your daily expenses. So many folks in this country are going through these real life struggles, are going through these real life struggles. So that's the topic tonight, folks. America stock housing. Comes to housing, when it comes to jobs, the whole freeze on mobility. If you are living in Minnesota and maybe like you want to move to a sunshine state for better opportunity, it's getting harder and harder to do that in this current environment, in this current economy. It's getting harder and harder and harder to do that. And that's creating real that's creating real situation for folks, for a lot of folks. Folks, people are um struggling to make ends meet, struggling to make financial decisions. you know um Raising family in this economy right now is not easy. And those are, I think, the article talk about, right, how everywhere the journalists that put this article together, everywhere they went, they encountered every city in this country, every region they went to. It was stories upon stories like this, how a lot of folks feel stuck. And this, as I said, right, very, very resonant in our immigrant community because some of us working two, three jobs, but yet still we're struggling. We just living paycheck to paycheck. It feels harder. I know when you scan social media, it's hard to kind of to even know if folks are going through whatever where we live in in a social media world where it is so easy to disguise things, but that's just the reality. So many folks feel stuck. So many folks, feel stuck because what? Times are so high, food prices are so high, gasoline prices, owning a car, owning a home, everything. Your monthly expenses. Now sometimes okay, you might probably be bringing home like net maybe 2 3 thousand, right? But when you look at your expenses, man, sometimes like if you have a mortgage, your kids, putting buying food, buying groceries, buying clothes, and everything else. So it just these are just stressful times, basically. These are just stressful times. What's the way forward? I think we how best we can maybe is through advocating for better policies from our politician. I don't know, because the whole housing, they keep sometimes when you read news where they say, gosh, there's the housing market is so tight, there's not much supply. But then even when you want to buy a home, right? As I said, the interest rate is so high. So there's this catch 22. Even for those that are in the current market, they cannot find the kind of home they are looking for, right? Is that because the supply is so tight, builders are not building enough homes. So it's like maybe all we can do in this current environment is we can just hope. But I don't think all of these things, right, should drive anyone. Especially for our immigrant community, we are a resilient group. We all came here to seek better opportunity. you know. So whatever it is, we can just hope that maybe things become better. Keep working hard for our families. Keep grinding. Keep hoping. If you are a prayerful person or a religious person, maybe you keep praying that things will get better. Don't lose hope. Don't get discouraged, right? As I said, we live in times that it's like they are so uncertain. But I don't think we should all lose hope. We should just keep leaning on one another, especially our immigrant community. We should come together, lean on one another. Maybe seek ideas, right? Sometimes in uncertain time like these, if we work together as a team, as a group, and collaborate, we might come up with ideas to see how to make our own personal economy better, how to make each other economy better, how to make each other lives better. But man, times are hard, right? Maybe like if you are doing stuff on your own, right? You're not making it. Maybe that you get with somebody. Maybe you put someone a little side hustle together, and you guys start doing it. Who knows, right? Because the one thing in our community, we are so used to doing things in silos, right? So used to doing things by ourselves. But in times like these, in moments like these, where in like everyone feels stuck, maybe when we work together more, when we come together as a team, when we collaborate, when we put ideas together, we can probably do better. We can probably, you know, change things, right? We can probably improve, you know, each of us personal economy. Because at the end of the day, man, you know, when I listen to, economic news, at the end of the day, I kind of bring it back to me. How's my personal economy? Am I able to pay my bills? Am I able to live the life that I want to live? Okay. I don't care about what the unemployment rate is. I don't care about, what the stock market is doing. All I want to know is that how's my personal economy is doing? Can I afford things for me and my family? Can I put food on my table? Am I going to bed, thinking, where is my next meal going to come from? And there's so many folks going through that, right? So many folks in our community, around this country going through that, things like that. So all we can do as a country, as a community, is to hope, is to work together, not to feel discouraged, is to, find ways, creative solutions to share ideas, you know, in times like these, sometimes like good business idea could come up, right? It's all about us not sitting in our own little bubble, in our own tribal space and become frustrated, get so depressed over your current economic situation, you know. I think we just gotta keep being hopeful. It's a situation like this, even though, right, America is stuck right now. I think it is something that might come to pass, right? I don't think house prices are going to stay this elevated. Hopefully, they will come down. No one knows when. Hopefully, there will come a time where, in like, interest rate would be lowered again. That folks will be able to buy the home they want to buy. First time home buyers will buy homes. Rent won't be so high. Apartment, like renting an apartment won't be so expensive to rent an apartment, one bedroom, two bedroom apartment. Can just hope that the good times, whatever that is, will come back. That America would not stay stuck. That upper mobility will come back again, right? Like if you want to move to the south, if you want to move to Florida for better sun, for better weather, you should be able to do that, right? You should be able to do that. Hopefully, there will come a time where those things will come back. But right now, it's like I definitely do agree with this article. America's stuck, folks. you know, we are stuck. It's hard. It's hard out there, man. It's hard out there. But all we can do, well, we cannot lose hope. We just got to keep grinding, especially for all my immigrant brothers and sisters out there, all our immigrant families out there, right? That's how I do, yeah, this segment, this show, Cycle Podcast for you. Don't give up. Keep grinding. You're working your two jobs. Keep doing your thing. Keep hustling. Keep, keep up the grind, right? Don't give up. Don't listen to all the noise. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep being hopeful. I said we cross the ocean to come here to hustle, right? So don't lose hope. Just keep hustling and just keep doing the right thing. So thank you so much tonight for tuning in, folks. Thanks for listening to me for the last couple of minutes babbling, but this was an article that I felt strongly about. I felt it really resonated with our community, with folks around this country, because we are right, America stuck. America stuck, folks. So with that, that's the end of our show tonight. Thank you so much for listening to the Inner Cycle podcast this week. It is a growing platform. It's a growing movement. Follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on X or Twitter, Apple Podcast, Spotify. We're trying to be all over to bring you great content like this, talking about, the housing market, the job market, things that are happening in our personal economy. So that's what this segment was about tonight, our personal economy, right? The Wall Street Journal article said America stuck. But how's your personal economy? Are you stuck? So thank you so much for listening to me tonight. It's been a pleasure coming to you this week with some great content. We'll be back here next week. And our girl Win promised us that she's going to be back next week, Friday, with the social segment. So I know you've been missing Win, but she's going to be back. So thank you so much for tuning into the Inner Circle podcast and see you all next week. Good night, folks.